Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, we are so close to Rutgers.
It's like Christmas Eve if Santa was extremely bad at football.
What'd you get this year? I got shut out 48-0 against Indiana.
You know, this is appropriate. We're going back to one of my childhood home states of New Jersey. It reminds me a little bit of one of the Christmas gifts I was most excited for. This was probably about 1987, 1988, something around there. And all I wanted in the world was an electric football game. Do you remember the electric football game where the game vibrates and the players moved around? Mm-hmm. If you ever have actually played an electric football game, the players just kind of run around in circles. It's like there's no strategy at all. There's no anything. It's just, you turn the game on and people just sort of go vibrating in different directions, and there's no semblance of any kind of strategy or cohesion or anything. So anyway, that brings us back to Rutgers football.
Perfect. Yes, that's the best way you can describe what we are going to see on Saturday. The thing about that game, though, you could go backwards.
You could. There was like a little disc inside the guy. You could just twist, and it made the guy turn left or turn right or spin in a circle or whatever. Yeah.
That sounds so fun. I mean, but you're right. They look cool, but then it's like Rutgers. It looks no. So what is the latest line? Is it like 52 still, or
50? I think it was either 52 or 52.5. I've seen it a couple different numbers in a couple different places.
Oh, so we talked to Ryan Day. This is a Thursday show. We talked to Ryan Day today, and I don't know if anything about Rutgers was actually asked or said.
No, there was some conversation about a Rutgers caliber team. That was when you asked him about the Ohio State club football team playing against Coppin State in the playoff this weekend. So there was more conversation about the Coppin State club football team than there was about Rutgers football. And that's pretty much all you need to know.
Did he answer? Did we ask anything about Rutgers in terms of what do they do well? There was none of that.
No. The standout answer, we talked about this a couple of days ago, I believe, but someone asked Jeff Okuda, like, what stands out about Rutgers on film, and it was kind of like, nothing really. I guess, I don't know, I've watched a lot of film maybe, I don't know, but nothing really comes to mind.
The jersey colors are all right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But before games, like the week leading up to a game, I'll watch here and there that team. I haven't watched Rutgers since the Michigan game.
You've seen all you need to.
That's the thing. What point is there? Researching. Well, the receivers aren't that great. Running back Isaiah Pacheco, he can do some stuff, but the line's not that great. And I'm going to give you all of this detail, and like the guy off the street could look at Rutgers and be like, yeah, they're not good. So.
Do you remember as always, I think the answer lies in an old school episode of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Do you remember the episode Who Shot Mr. Burns? Mm-hmm. Where Mr. Burns is officially pronounced dead, and then they move him to a better hospital where his condition was upgraded to alive. That's just a cartoon. Once you're officially pronounced dead, in real life, you are dead, and that cannot change. So, anyway, that happened to Rutgers about 6 weeks ago, and their condition has not improved.
No, and it's going to be bad. I don't even know how you do a preview show of a murder.
True crime.
Yeah. Back and to the left. There's when the coaches aren't talking about the team or the game, and the players aren't really talking about the game, and then we have to come in here and talk about the game. This is going to be one of those where it'll be 21-0, then 42-0, then whatever Ohio State would like it to be, that's what it will be. And I'm not sure if we talked about this on the last show, but there won't be many, if any, walk-ons traveling. Right. So everybody in this game is going to be some sort of a high school All-American, 4-star guy.
No, that's not true. Not everyone, because Rutgers is also going to have players on the field.
I'm sorry. Everybody from Ohio State.
Okay.
will be guys who will eventually be counted on or want to prove themselves. And then you've got little Rutgers trying to stop it. And, DeMario McCall wants to score, wants to get into the end zone, wants to make big plays because he's a guy who wishes he was playing more.
Mm-hmm.
This is an opportunity for him to show that, hey, I should be playing more. And we don't know about Marcus Crowley, but any of those guys who are playing sparingly, this is an opportunity for them to show that they should be playing more. And I don't even know how many walk-on receivers will make it, which means you're going to have a lot of Jameson Williams out there. And, Jalen Harris is a guy who has played little and will want to show what he can do. It just depends on how much they're going to throw the ball. And defensively, it's the same way. That you just got a lot of young guys who want to make their mark. And that's not good news for Rutgers.
Right. Yeah. There's the talent level of Ohio State's third team is probably at least comparable to Rutgers starters. And the point at which Ohio State's third team is in there, Rutgers is probably not going to have their starters out there in the line of fire. So Ohio State's third team is unquestionably better than Rutgers' second team. And, at that point, I'm sure Rutgers players are going to be, if the chance for their backups to play, it's the same motivation,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, show what you can do for next year. But also, you're at the point of the college football season. This is week 11, right? Week 11? This has stopped being fun a long time ago if you're playing for Rutgers. And, Ohio State, it's like they've had a fun season. Everyone's had a lot of stuff to be happy about. Rutgers is just, it's like, you could just put a funeral dirge behind their season highlight reel, and their season highlight reel is going to last about 1 minute and 12 seconds because it's 2 games and then just blood everywhere.
Yeah, and now you've got Ohio State coming in with an angry coach about all the penalties last week and wanting them to right the ship and not, be so lackadaisical scoring their 76 for 373 points. You lose track of how many times they've done 70 points. And this week might be their third of the season, which would probably be.
I have not explicitly gone back to look for this, but based on how few games there have been 70 points, I'm pretty sure this would be the first time in Ohio State history that it would be 3 games in a row. I'll go back and double check that before we actually write it. But, this is a podcast. We have no journalistic responsibility here.
This is just 2 guys in a car talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a radio hit this morning, and one of the questions was, what would need to happen for Rutgers to win, or, it was for Rutgers to win, Tom. And I said, well, Justin Fields has to go down. Chris Chuganoff has to go down. Gunnar Hoke has to go down. You need to lose some guys on defense. You need to lose some guys on offense. And that is basically just to even the odds. I don't know of a scenario that can happen short of, you mentioned in the meeting room, Legionnaire's disease breaking out. There is no logical or believable way to even come up with some way they win this.
As soon as, oh man, I'm so excited to tweet this on Saturday. As soon as Ohio State's team buses pull up to the stadium, the game is over. You, dear listener, can look forward to that because when Ryan Day walks through that tunnel in the corner of Rutgers Stadium, I will just tweet a picture of that and just game over. And you will know what it means.
Game blouses.
This is one of these things where one of the reasons I think no one bothered asking Ryan Day about why, what stands out about Rutgers is you're sort of, as a professional obligation, required to come up with an answer. And why would you put him in a position where he has to lie?
Well, yeah, you're right. It does nobody any good. And there's only so much that you can even creatively put out there as a scenario. And even if Ohio State, like the Kentucky situation where they have Lynn Bowden at quarterback, who's their running back, all-purpose guy, if you're just running Wildcat with Master Teague, you're still going to put up 38, 42, a good number of points that Rutgers won't be able to match because they are going against the Ohio State defense.
If you're running
the Ohio State defense could outscore Rutgers in this game.
If you're running Wildcat with Master Teague, Eddie George's record of 314 rushing yards in a game is in danger. I wrote something earlier in the week that was like 20 incredible things Ohio State could do this weekend against Rutgers. And I didn't bother putting individual records in there because, yes, of course, Justin Fields could throw for 600 yards this weekend, but he's not going to be in the game nearly long enough for that to be. Of course, J.K. Dobbins could break Eddie George's record. Of course, Master Teague could. None of those guys are going to be in the game long enough for that to actually happen. So I focus more on the team totals. But if you did get to the point where you had to run Wildcat with Master Teague, and it's like, well, we got to do this for 3 quarters. Like, yeah, that's move over Eddie. There's a new king of Ohio State running backs.
Just running behind DeJuan Jones.
I mean, look, I have eligibility left.
It would be fun to watch. You just wouldn't want to, see all those scenarios that it would take place. It would be crazier than the 2007 college football season.
Mm-hmm.
Just confined in this one apartment. You've got the records, you've got the inevitabilities of this game. Is there anything, what are you looking forward to watching?
I'm sorry, I just went back. I'm looking at a page of Ohio State football records. I had forgotten that Ohio State went 30 for 33 against Rutgers last year passing the ball. 30 for 33. The single game completion record that tied the single game completion record, which had previously been set against UCLA with a 10 for 11 performance. Because obviously you're not going to just be able to complete literally 91% of your passes against any defense with, any kind of number of passes that's significant. 30 for 33.
That's ridiculous.
Seems good. I don't know.
So, yeah. And
what? So your question was, what am I looking forward to?
I'm trying, Tom. There's,
I'm looking forward to all those players who have a chance to, who have not gotten to play a lot and who have a chance to maybe make an impact and show what they can do. I'm excited for all that. This is a game that is twice as exciting, 3 times as exciting as it would have been otherwise because of that red shirt rule.
Yeah.
Because,
oh my God.
Because you have an opportunity to see, go through the list. Enoch Vermahi, because you have a chance to see someone like Tommy Eichenberg, linebacker, who's played I think he played 1 snap against Miami right before they called the game because of rain, and that's it. I think that's all the only time he's played. Defensive end Noah Potter, just guys like that where it's all right, let's see these guys get an extended run, and Potter got a decent run at the end of last week's game.
He's playing well.
And it'll be interesting to see which of those guys are on the travel squad too, because that'll tell you, if backup offensive lineman or backup linebacker or whoever who has not played a lot is not on the travel squad, that tells you they're really not ready for an extended run of playing time. So there's a lot of this that's there's information that we can glean out of this. There's stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing, but it's all the stuff that I'm interested in on Saturday is all the stuff that's going to happen when the margin of when the margin of the game is 50 points or more.
I wonder, how J.K. Dobbins struggled last year when he pressed. This is an Ohio State offense that may end up pressing to get out of the game as quickly as possible, and then maybe things don't go so well, and they only score 21 points in the first half. And then they have to come back out there in the third quarter and then maybe load it up then. But I think for Rutgers, maybe that's one hope, is that Ohio State is pressing too much to hurry up and get out of the game and get the backups in. But then as we saw last week, they wanted to throw the ball and it was very effective. And then Justin Fields can pick up third downs however he likes. And I would expect some more of that this week. Although, do you think they want to get J.K. over 100? Ryan Day doesn't really focus on stats for players, so they may not be worried about that. But in terms of his All-American candidacy, stuff like that, it would probably be good. But right now, the guy, J.K. Dobbins, 14 carries in the fourth quarter this year, 28 carries in the third quarter. 42 total carries in the second half of games this year, and he's still averaging 130 yards rushing a game, which is crazy. I hope for his sake he doesn't have one of these like 15 for 60s or 12 for 60s, and because they're throwing the ball around so much, and he never really busts a long one. So you want to see him kind of keep pace with Jonathan Taylor for his sake, because the further away they get from each other, the more people forget how much he dominated the Wisconsin game and how much Jonathan Taylor did not. So I guess I would like to see J.K. maybe break a couple just to put his numbers up there and keep pace with the rest of the nation.
Yeah, right now Dobbins is at exactly 1,200 yards rushing, 166 carries, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7.2 yards per carry. But when you go through his game by game, Ryan Day has not shown a real inclination to keep him out there to run up, to keep that meter running. Like his lowest rushing yards this season, 21 carries for 91 yards against FAU, which, that was 21 carries is a good day's work. Against Miami, which is your closest probably analog to this week's game, 8 carries, 53 yards and a touchdown. Against Maryland last week, 12 carries, 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it just doesn't seem like he's real inclined to pay any attention to that at all. It's just because I would imagine in Ryan Day's head, the worst possible thing he can do with J.K. Dobbins is keep him out to go from 85 yards to 120 yards just for numbers' sake when the score is 38-0 or whatever, and then heaven forbid he tweaks a hamstring or turns an ankle or something, and then he's not able to play against Penn State. Like the goals this year are things other than get J.K. Dobbins a first-team All-American.
Because they are right now. This is the precipice of their championship run. Once they get done with this, then it's all for real. So you want people as healthy and out of this game, I guess, as quickly as possible, because then next week it starts for real. So Tom, I have Football Writers Association All-American ballot is due tomorrow. I, of course, have put it off.
The All-American ballot is due tomorrow?
Yes.
Before the season is completed?
That is correct.
Can I tell you the 17 reasons that's literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard?
Well, Tom, what I'm asking you is, which I would put J.K. on there, Chase Young. You could put any of the corners on there. Mm-hmm. Like we've talked about Devon Hamilton every week, and we talk about how we talk about him every week. I mean, he's up there. Is there anybody else that, Josh Myers, Wyatt Davis? I mean,
what do you get to vote for first, second, and third team?
Oh, no, like I said, I haven't looked at it. I just keep getting reminders that I have to do it.
Well, you seem really dedicated to this task, which is an extremely intelligent task to be doing 3 weeks before the regular season ends. Like, what? Okay, we're gonna set aside the stupidity of this whole thing and move on.
Well, I'm never gonna be able to fill it out because it wants my Google password. And
well,
jeez,
R.I.P. your ballot. You could certainly put Devon Hamilton, somewhere on that first, second team. I mean, Jeff Okudah, I think, has a pretty...
Yeah.
Jeff Okudah might not be a first-team All-American, but that's just because his interception numbers are not great, and that's just because people are not throwing the ball to him at all.
I think he's well known enough, though, that people are just going to put him on there because they know his name.
You could make a decent case for... Yeah, Josh Myers has done a reasonably good job. He's probably not the Remington Award winner, but you could make an argument for one of the. Do
you think he played better than Michael Jordan last year? Who was an All-American?
So. Yes, I don't think that the question there is whether Josh Myers should be an All-American this year or not. I would say that you could put Jordan Fuller on there somewhere. Drew Chrisman. Drew Chrisman has been a little shaky recently, but you could put Drew Chrisman on there. I mean, these are not all necessarily guys who would be first team. I probably wouldn't put, 12 Buckeyes on my first team All-American ballot. They haven't been quite that good, but Justin Fields is probably somewhere on there. If you get a second or third team, I mean,
and the thing is, none of the numbers are going to be crazy other than J.K. because everybody's, they don't play much.
Right.
So it's hard to justify that and say, no, trust me, the Devon Hamilton is really good. It's like, well, he's got 12 tackles on the year, so why don't you shut up, you idiot?
Right.
It's like, God, why you got to be so mean?
Well, why are you making me turn in my ballot in the middle of the season, you jerk?
So what about Master Teague in terms of all Big Ten? He could be second, third team guy. He's right now, I think he's fourth in the Big Ten in Big Ten games in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a guy who is, as we call him, the closer, who's one of the best big running backs in the Big Ten and is going to be somewhere on that second or third team, I would think, even though he's not a starter. Maybe people won't reward him with that because they just see him as a guy who comes in when the game is over.
I would assume that he's probably not going to get it. Not that he's not one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the country, in the Big Ten. I mean, that seems like it won't, people won't be willing to do that. Not that it's justified. I mean, there are not that many backs in the league that I would take over him. I mean, J.K. Dobbins,
Jonathan Taylor.
One
of the Minnesota guys, Rodney Smith, they split up a bunch of carries though as well. So
Noah Cain's looked pretty good for Penn State, but not he hasn't been the guy all year.
Right.
And then it starts getting thin pretty quickly after that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a decent case to be made for it, but I'm sure that it won't happen.
I think I just made a decent case by saying that he's fourth in the conference in running. And if you're choosing 6 running backs for your top 3 teams,
yeah,
I mean, come on, give the guy a break. And you're looking here at Jonathan Taylor, then J.K., then Rodney Smith, Stevie Scott, 737 yards, Elijah Collins, at Michigan State. So you've got Master Teague, who is currently 6th in the Big Ten in rushing. So that's good. That's right there. But then you go to against conference opponents, and now he's all the way up to 4th, averaging 92.7 yards per game.
What's his yards per carry compared to the other top contenders in conference games?
It's about 1.5 yards, 2 yards better. He's second in the Big Ten behind J.K. Dobbins.
Oh, who does he play for? I forget.
Teague is 7.5 yards per carry in Big Ten play.
You could make an argument, and it will never, ever, 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 ever happen. But you could make an argument that the top 2 running backs in the Big Ten this year and the 2 first-team Big Ten running backs should both be Buckeyes this year.
Yep, I would agree with that. Over 900 of J.K. Dobbins' 1,200 yards have come in the first half this year, which is that's pretty good. Pretty good first half of games. He's averaging over 10 yards per carry in the second quarter this year.
Is that good? Is that far? I don't.
It's pretty good. And I think he's 4.9 in the first quarter, and then boom, that second quarter, and we all know that's where Ohio State. That's where they keep their murder dungeon. It's in the second quarter of the games. Don't go in there. They're going in there. What are you doing?
This has very much been people screaming at the screen, no, don't do it.
Not in the second quarter. No, don't. Don't
run upstairs. That's where the second quarter is.
The second quarter is right behind you.
The second quarter is calling from inside the house.
Yes.
Why don't we? Else? How about we talk about basketball?
That's a great idea.
Because while we're on the subject of Ohio State completely murdering a team from a state in or around New Jersey, Villanova basketball, R.I.P.
Yeah, number 10 Villanova.
Not no more, you ain't.
So they won their first game against Army, something like 97 to 50 something or whatever. They lost this one 76-51. So I was going to ask Chris Holtman, hey man, you held Villanova 46 points under their scoring average. That's pretty good. But I chose not to go that route. But really, really impressive overall. They came out, hit the first 3 threes, went up 9-0. Villanova had to get a timeout. They got a 3 to make it 9-3. And then Ohio State had another onslaught. And it compared to the Cincinnati game that Chris Holtmann called a rock fight and was the most physical thing you've ever seen, the Buckeyes had open shots after open shot in this game. They were able to drive, and they're doing all of this, scoring all of this, doing all of this, looking really well. Caleb Wesson, I think he had 10 points and 11 rebounds. I think he's averaging about 10 points per game this season. Chris Holtmann said after the game, he's playing the best ball of his career, and it's because of he's moving better. He's defending so much better. I think he had 4 blocks in this game. He's doing drop step dunks. I mean, you've mentioned how different he looks physically, and it's showing up in more ways than the box score. And when he's one of 5 guys around 11 or 12 points, this team could beat a lot of good teams, and we saw that last night.
Oh, yeah, and that was something that Jay Wright talked about after the game, the Villanova coach, talked about Caleb Wesson's mobility being such a difference. And you see that on offense, you see that on defense. And I did not get a chance to watch a ton of this game because I was covering football interviews while you were covering the shooty hoops.
Yes.
But, listening to it first of all, it was right as we came out of football interviews, someone said the basketball game score is 17-3, and I went, "Oh, that's too bad." That's and they're like, "No.
This is
the other. You know the team that's really good that won the Nationals? Yeah, no, they're getting disemboweled about a quarter mile from here. It was real impressive to just be up, stay up, not ever have, like Villanova kind of made that little run right before half. It was like, oh, they got it under 20, like maybe. And I was listening to Paul Keels and Ron Stokes on the way home after the interviews, and Stokes was talking about, if they get it under 20 here, that's the goal. Get it to the teens, and then second half started, it was just like right back. Nope, never. I mean, did they ever get it within 15? I don't think they did, because it got back up to 30 at one point towards the end.
Because Ohio State immediately opened it up in the second half with an alley-oop, which was a play drawn up by assistant coach Ryan Peden, and they worked on it in practice. And he told Chris Holtmann, let's at the half, let's do this, let's get the energy back, let's get the crowd back into it. Villanova they went on, I think it was a 9-0 run at the end of the half. Let's get the crowd back into it and just reassert ourselves. And so they did. And Caleb Wesson from the top of the key threw an alley-oop to Kyle Young to get that going. And then later on, they had a Kyle Young drop off to DJ Carton for a dunk. And I asked Chris Holtmann about that. Do you call these plays because you know how DJ Carton is going to finish it? It gets the crowd in. He's like, yeah, that was Ryan Peden as well. And you do sometimes call them knowing that it's going to get the crowd going. And the crowd was really, really good in this game. And there's a lot of people there. And compared to the Cedarville game, when there was a bunch of Cedarville fans in attendance, and the UMass Lowell game where there was a local player for UMass Lowell from Columbus, and there was a bunch of people cheering for him. There was nobody cheering for Villanova in this one, and it was very welcomed by Holtmann and the Buckeyes.
That's that's kind of weird for a team that's had as much success as they've had recently, that they're just nothing. I mean, that's a little weird. My question that I had a little trouble discerning this on the radio, how well Ohio State was defending versus how many just, was Villanova missing open shots, or was this incredibly good Ohio State defense? Because I feel like the defense has been pretty good this year. And if they really were locking down Villanova, that's a whole different level of oh man, this thing is maybe for real, than just, Villanova just missed a bunch of, wasn't their night.
They were locking them down, and this is without arguably their best defender in Andre Wesson. And what Holtmann said was they worked all week on getting to the shooters on the catch. They didn't want them to catch and be able to shoot. They wanted to get there at the same time as the catch, and they were doing that. And while they missed shots that they had made in the previous game, they didn't have many open looks. They certainly didn't have as many as Ohio State. And I think Ohio State came into this game, and Holtmann even said he was expecting it to be more physical. And I think everybody else did too. And when it isn't, you feel like you have so much more room for activities.
Yeah.
And they took advantage of them. And CJ Walker looked like he finally got the rust off of him. He shook it all off because he was driving, he was shooting. Luther Muhammad, he hits a couple threes. That's always helpful. And when Dwayne Washington is on instead of off,
Mm-hmm.
and those two played defense as well, and they had some mismatches against him, trying to defend some bigger players. And, this was, Holtman said after the game, you get about 2 or 3 of these as a coach where everything kind of goes your way.
Mm-hmm.
And everything went their way, but I don't think it was like the bounce of the ball. I think Ohio State made most of it happen.
Well, here's what was kind of intriguing to me was it wasn't like, remember the game last year when Justin Ahrens went off for like 30 points?
Yeah.
It wasn't like someone just blew up like Vesuvius. It was just, 5 guys had double digits, and Dwayne Washington was real hot at the beginning of the game. He had like 11 points, like 5 minutes in the game, and finished with like 14.
Yep.
It wasn't like this was the Dwayne Washington game. Washington had 11, Walker had 10, before halftime, but neither of them finished with like 25, 30 points. It was just real balanced scoring. That makes you real hard to defend if it's not just like, here's the one guy on the team that, when it's crunch time, this is the guy who's going to get the ball. Who is that guy on this year's Ohio State team? I mean, Caleb Wesson is probably going to get a decent amount of those touches. Carton is probably going to get a decent amount of those touches later, especially later in the year. But you've got a bunch of other options there. That makes you so much harder to defend.
I'll tell you, one of those options might end up being at some point is E.J. Liddell, who came off the bench. I think he was 3 for 3 from the field, had a couple of 3-pointers, including one like at the buzzer of the shot clock. And he's a guy, Holtman put him in at one point because they were having some issues scoring. And he's a guy who can get his own shot off. He can clean up the boards, and he's just a tough matchup for teams. And he's a guy that, in a situation where, like Caleb Wesson can sometimes be taken out of the game if you want to keep him out of the perimeter. Liddell is a guy who can get there on his own with the ball. He's him and Carton off the bench give this team something that it's not going to be every night because they're freshmen.
Right.
But so far they've been really good. I was impressed with Alonzo Gaffney played more than I thought he would. Another guy who has had to step up with Andre Wesson out. And he's a guy I thought I wouldn't expect him to play in this game because I didn't expect him to play in Cincinnati. He's a guy who he's got to get stronger, but he threw a couple down. I was impressed. I was surprised he played as much as he did.
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to trust him in a game that they're assuming is going to be as physical as you would think a Villanova game would be, that's a pretty encouraging sign.
Get him ready for the Big Ten for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about not necessarily being able to bank on those 2 freshmen, being able to score like that every game, that's why it's so big to have such balance like that and have, it's not just there's 2 guys who can score. It's, okay, well, this guy's having an off night. Well, that's okay because we have 4 other guys who they can get the ball to. And that makes such a difference in terms of consistency throughout the year because you are going to have on nights and off nights. That's just how it goes. That's just how basketball is. And to be able to weather those nights where, the shots just weren't falling for this guy or these 2 guys or whoever, that you've seen Ohio State seasons derailed because of, hey, it just wasn't, it just wasn't Jamar Butler's night.
Yeah.
So too soon? No.
Yeah. I'll say like Jaquel Foster, still too soon from back in the day, but like Luther Muhammad fell off a cliff last year at the end of the season. But like you said, as long as you continue to remain balanced and CJ Walker comes in and does his thing. And then like, as Holtman said, I asked Holtman, like, how far can you go with Caleb Wesson scoring 10 points a game? He's like, well, he's not going to end up scoring 10 points a game. He'll end up being 15, 18, something like that and lead the team. It's just right now, you're not going to complain playing this well and only getting, he's doing whatever he needs to do.
Well, to play a team as good as Villanova and not have a great performance out of Caleb Wesson, where it's just kind of like, it was all right. You expect more of him in most games
offensively.
So you get maybe a little bit below average kind of performance from him, and to still win that game the way they won it. That's a real statement.
Yeah, so it was an interesting watch. It was a fun watch, fun game, fun atmosphere. Tom, 180 degrees from a fun atmosphere. Let's do our Rutgers picks.
Yes.
I will go first. I went in with the radio show that I was just on a little bit ago. I went 70-0, picking a shutout. I think it's probably, the thing is, it could be whatever. It could be 49-0 at the half. It could be 70-0 at the half. It's whatever. It could be 100 points after the 4 quarters if Ryan Day wants it. He doesn't, but he's got a bunch of hungry players. But I still say 70-0, and that might be a little conservative.
In 1916, Cumberland College.
Oh no.
Beat the Georgia Tech baseball team. I think the score was 22-0. This angered Georgia Tech. They had a football game scheduled between those two teams later in that year. Cumberland College had disbanded its football team, but Georgia Tech insisted, coached by John Heisman, insisted, "Nay, we will play this game as we have scheduled." So Cumberland College put together a small group of students, traveled to Georgia Tech to face mighty John Heisman and his rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. And lo, some bad stuff happened. I'm just going to read you some final stats from that game.
All right.
Cumberland College, 27 rushes, minus 42 yards. 9 fumbles lost.
Oh.
2 of 18 passing, 14 yards, 6 interceptions. Georgia Tech, passing 0 for 0 for 0 yards. Georgia Tech rushing, 26 carries, 522 yards, 18 touchdowns.
26 plays?
26, well, they kept Georgia, because when you force 15 turnovers, Gerd, when you're plus 15 in turnovers, that's you're going to win most of your games. I mean, that's a cliche as old as time.
When you force 15.
Georgia Tech kicking extra points, 30 for 32.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Final score, Georgia Tech 222, Cumberland 0. Gerd, Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State 222, Rutgers 0.
Wow.
Let's see someone say I'm the low man this week. Why are you such a pessimist? And you know what? If Ryan Day wants it to happen, it might just happen. Probably not.
Well, yeah, probably not, but
maybe 100.
Going 3 times of my own score, so I was conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, 222-0.
When you say conservative, when I say I'm the conservative one, you always say that I'm a hater. So
right.
What would that make you in this example?
Well, compared to your score, I'm a terrible hater. I'm the lowest of the low.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? So for 1 week, Tom, own it. You are no longer a hater. You are the eternal optimist. You are the fact knower.
Mm-hmm.
222-0. You heard it there first. If it happens, whoa, boy. Would you think? Let me ask you this: would Ryan Day get fired if he did that?
No.
Would there be such outrage?
I don't think.
Would they have to apologize for it?
If anyone should apologize for it, I think it's Jim Delaney.
Oh my gosh!
I'm just gonna read you this quote from the Atlanta Journal recap of the game. You tell me if this sounds like something that could plausibly happen Saturday. As a general rule, the only thing necessary for a touchdown was to give a Tech back the ball and holler, "Here he comes," and there he goes. Does that sound like something that could plausibly happen when Master Teague is in the game?
Plausibly, yes.
Saturday? Yep.
Yes. Quite. All right, well, you've convinced me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sure you have convinced our listeners as well. I think that's going to have to do it, Tom, because nothing can top that.
All right, well then, I guess we're done except for our Patreon show, which will undoubtedly top that.
Oh, yes, except for that.
We'll have a Patreon exclusive podcast that will come out, I think, Thursday evening or Friday morning, so you have that to
looking at
look
some possible records that will fall.
Yes, other than 222 points scored.
Well, and that's not a broken record, but you'll just be tying a record.
Well, school records. Yes.
There you go. Yes. School records. Yes.
Yeah, just in case you're wondering, the Ohio State school record for points scored in a game is 128 against Oberlin in 1916. The modern record, like since World War II, 83 points against Iowa in 1950. And I got to tell you,
that's in danger.
83 points.
Because 84 is what? 12 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Got to make all those PATs.
Or to go for 2 in the fourth quarter if you miss a couple.
That might get someone fired.
All right. That will do it. Yeah, so check out the Patreon. show if you want. Patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly. And there's different tiers there, but there's a bunch of shows, and we usually do 1 or 2 bonus shows per week. And this will be our first bonus show of the Rutgers week, but we'll be ramping it up given the Penn State and the Michigan and the Iowa.
Minnesota?
I was joking. I was clearly joking. We'll see if Minnesota can hold out. So thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network with the Buckeye Sloopcast on Mondays and Fridays and Silver Bullets on Tuesdays and us whenever you get us. So we will talk to you guys later.